right, here we go. So yes, welcome everyone, whoever has joined us today. My name is Iliyan Hariyani, and I am co-founder and president of Bindu, an organization that seeks to destigmatize menstruation and fight period poverty here in India. So yes, this is our fourth panel in our panel series of our Menstrual Hygiene Day Fest, titled Period Talk with Men. And of course, it is brought to you by Bindu. So before I start, just a few housekeeping rules. For all our attendees, it would be great if you can keep yourselves muted and not interrupt during the session. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat box. We are more than welcome to take your questions and get them answered through our panelists. And yes, I think we can move to the agenda of the session. So we're going to begin with introducing Bindu and what today's panel is all about. Then we're going to introduce our three amazing panelists. Then we're going to have a few specific questions based on the expertise of our panelists. Then we're going to have like a few questions that will be open to the floor. And finally, we'll be moving to questions from the audience. And since this is the last panel, we will then be concluding our Fest's panel series. All right. So before I begin, what is Bindu? So in three simple words, Bindu aims to enrich, educate, and empower. Enriching in the sense that we answer the unanswered questions for menstruators when it comes to the topics ranging from the journey of menstruating to dealing with period-related illnesses to choosing the right products. Educating young school children so that we make the future generations aware about the reality of menstruation, and making workshops and sessions in a way that they are conducive to discussions with both boys and girls to make people realize that menstruation is not about gender, but it is about human rights. And finally, empower. We empower menstruators by giving them sustainable menstrual hygiene kits. And this is especially in underprivileged communities because we want to make sure that no one has to sacrifice their hopes and their dreams simply because of the fact that they menstruate. So coming to today's panel discussion, the panel topic, period talk with men. You may ask, why do men even need to talk about periods? Do we even have the right to discuss something that we don't experience at all, something that's not our issue or our business? And this is exactly what we'll be exploring in today's session. And we'll be exploring why men need to be part of the dialogue, why men need to be true allies and active allies in our fight against stigma and poverty. And to discuss this, we have three amazing panelists with us. First is Nayandeep Rakshit. Nayandeep started off as a student reporter in ninth standard with a newspaper in Kolkata. He later on moved to Mumbai to pursue his passion and dreams in 2014. He has recently been working with DNA and Pink Villa and currently heading Bollywood Bubble to promote good, kind journalism that has become a rarity in today's times. Welcome, Nayandeep. Let's give him a virtual round of applause.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for having me because it's absolutely my pleasure and honor, genuinely.
Thank you, Nayandeep. Next with us, we have Ziyaan Virji. Ziyaan is an advocate of the generation of change. He is an altruistic young change maker who has found purpose in creating social impact. He is the founder and CEO of For the Menstruator, which is a global initiative that aims to create a world of menstrual equity and has supported 8,500 menstruators while working in 7 different countries around the world. Thank you for being here and welcome, Ziyaan.
Thank you for having me.
And last but not least, we have Dr. Yuvraj with us. He is a gynecologist and fertility expert. He holds a diploma in reproductive medicine and has also obtained a diploma in advanced gynec endoscopy from CICE in Clermont-Ferrand, France. He is also an ISAR Aspire Fellow in Reproductive Medicine from Japan and a Fellow in Reproductive Medicine SKUH from Kiel School of Germany. He is currently the Medical Director at Ikigai Fertility Center in Vadodara and Head of Infertility Department at the Karamsad Medical College. Um, he has been featured in Brute India, Vogue India, Elle India, Times Now, Grazia, and various other media platforms for the work he does on social media and his COVID awareness uh, efforts. So thank you for being here, Dr. Yuvraj, and we're very glad to have you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having
All
me.
right. Thank you. So there goes our introductions. And without further ado, I think we can get right into the topic of today. So before we get into anything, um, just for our non-menstruators who are attending this panel, Dr. Yuvraj, can you tell us in brief and simple words what menstruation is all about?
All right. So menstruation is probably a so-called a reproductive manifestation of you having a uterus. As simply as put, in terms of this world where we're talking about, especially it's a Pride Month, so when we're talking about gender equality and all. So anyone who has a uterus has, a scientific cycle wherein the uterus sheds its endometrium every month, and it's a part of a normal physiology of the human being. I think that's the simplest way I could put, which occurs in, regularity or irregularity in your body.
Couldn't have said it better. I think along with that, I have like a follow-up question. So since we are all non-menstruators here and we're discussing their role in menstruation, so in communities around the world and especially in developing countries like India, numerous men feel embarrassed and awkward and shameful when it comes to discussing periods, let alone with strangers, but with their own wives, sisters, and daughters. So, where does this very, very common feeling of shame and embarrassment stem from?
Well, I mean, before I begin slaughtering why these things are happening, I think we are at a better position today than what we were probably when we were children and we were studying. We are having a male panel today that itself somewhere shows the progress we've made. Saying that, why did it take so long and have a long path to cross and go is, I think it starts from the basics. I think, for example, in country like ours and a lot of developing countries, the entire upbringing of male child is in such a way that he's kept away from these topics that involve female. And then if you move a step forward, it's again about the schooling and education. I am a gynecologist, and in fact, it's so surprising that forget schooling, even medical schools still today don't talk about menstrual health in different identities, let alone just a phenotypically female girl from menstruators, or even mention a term menstrual. So I think it's the education, it's the upbringing, and also the entire myth and taboo that has just surrounded in terms of religion and society. It has made this particular topic probably a little uncomfortable to talk about. But so I've said this at a lot of places. Sometimes it's controversial, but it's also that female till today have also not been really open to involve men in this conversation. Somewhere we understand, when you talk about these topics, it involves a lot of female health. When, for example, when I read your question, I was just thinking about this episodes of Friends where, Rachel says, you no uterus, no opinion, right? But so I think even apart from men being inclusive, I think we need female voices and a lot of female groups and communities to start involving, which till date has not been the scene.
Yeah, I think
Can I add something to that? Honestly speaking, he's absolutely right. And I feel that it stems from a deep-rooted sense of conditioning that we have in India today. And yes, absolutely right that most females are not comfortable sharing talking, and discussing about their period problems with men, especially around men. But I also feel that, like you said, that it's we are not educated enough to understand. And even when we know that, you know, we take it too lightly as well. Like, I'm not talking about us as in men, I'm talking about the population at large. And I also feel that, yes, he's absolutely right when he talks about upbringing, because if your mom and your dad and people around you, like your brother, I'm not talking about your mom and your sister, I'm talking about your brother, your father, your nana, nani, dada, dadi, if they are not going to make it a comfortable discussion for you, and if they are going to like hush it up, and because of our conditioning, I don't know what is so wrong about matlab, what is so wrong in discussing periods? Like, it's a very normal thing. I have never had periods, of course. Biologically, I am not capable of having periods. But it's not that I didn't know. When I was 10, 12, 13, I think I knew what it was. I knew what whisper was, and I was clearly told that you don't need to whisper, asking for a whisper at a medical shop. And that's matlab, I'm fortunate enough to have a mother like that, to be honest, and sisters like that, because my sisters have been really older than me, so maybe they have educated me enough. But I do feel that it stems from a lot of social conditioning, and that hopefully changes. I don't think that we are making too much progress there too. Maybe this generation, when we become parents, will make that progress, and that's why maybe we are seeing a little bit of change here and there today.
Um, I'll also just add on to that. Since this is getting like it's an interesting conversation. I feel like as much as we talk about again it being a very uncomfortable topic to talk about, and I know someone mentioned the aspect of education, and how let's say maybe some people don't know about it necessarily. Um, I think we can't have this conversation without considering, let's say, the cultural context of this topic, and the religious aspect of it. I feel like in our religions and cultures, stemming back from generations to generations, unfortunately periods have always been referred to as dirty or unsanitary or unhygienic, right? So it's important that while we have this conversation, I mean, speaking from personal experience, this is something that as both of the other panelists, I have had a conversation with my mom about it, obviously. But it's not something that you just casually talk about it, especially before I started the organization. But when I look back to it, and when I'm going to communities, I see that it's an uncomfortable conversation because there's a cultural and religious aspect to it. And things have just been tradition and been passed on from generations to generations. So when we are talking about this, it's important that we really dive deep into the root cause of some of these issues. I feel like a lot of the times we sort of forget that, and growing up, religion and culture plays such a huge role in how we base off our lifestyles and decisions, that that's something that contributes a lot to this whole problem of having this taboo and stigma. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of interesting perspectives were brought forward, especially about how the current generation is like no other. We're accelerating change at a rate like never before. So that's something we must keep in mind. And secondly, it is not just men, but also, in fact, everyone who is responsible to help shatter all the stigmas and the taboos that have been persisting in our society forever. And it is also important to not ignore the interplay of religion and culture in the beliefs and the stigmas that we hold on to. So thank you for engaging so well with this question. um, you know Taking this forward, about how men can feel women more, or menstruators more comfortable. Nayandeep, a couple days ago, I saw your story and you wrote about how your female friends feel very comfortable around you, and they can, without hesitating, they can discuss their period problems with you. So can you share with us maybe an anecdote, or maybe some of the ways you use, um, whether by making resources or products available, or simply by emotionally supporting your menstruating friends?
I think it again is your emotional support which counts the most. You can just go and get the product. प्रोडक्ट खरीदने में क्या है, मतलब कोई जाके ऐसे विस्पर करके बोलता है कि मुझे स्टे फ्री दे दो या मुझे विस्पर दे दो, या कोई जाके चिल्ला के बोल देता है. It's the differentiation is there. But my problem is that I have always had this really I'm very averse to any kind of discrimination. And if you notice, doctor will be able to say this. When we talk about religious interplay into all this and cultural interplay, don't we realize that when a woman goes through her period, which is a monthly, which is a good thing, let me just say, it flushes out toxins from your body, it flushes out unwanted stuff from your body, and we refer to it as dirty and we refer to it as unholy at times. We are actually discriminating between women also, like women who are okay, उनको अभी आचार छूना नहीं चाहिए, उनको मंदिर नहीं जाना चाहिए. We're discriminating. That's basic form of discrimination, period. My point is that when I'm talking about my friends, okay, my mother, like you said, Bindu is educative, enriching, and empowering. I had a very empowered mother who educated me and enriched me with information from the time I was a kid. And my mother and I talk about everything. Honestly, we talk about everything. And I'm fortunate, touch wood, that I have a mother like that who I can walk up to with my personal life issues, with my professional life issues, and with these things also, sometimes which I didn't know. As a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, you do have questions. If you bury those questions as a teenager, when you're rebellious, that is the age when you feel like, oh, I need to know. And then we didn't have Google, right? We needed to know from somewhere. And we would like, why go anywhere else? Rather go to your parents, go to your close ones, and you get. My point is, everybody should be informed. Talking about my friends, I have always maintained that that comfort with my friends, and I feel that maybe because how I am and who I am, I've always been closer emotionally and been very sensitive towards my female friends. Like, I've been protective as a brother, I've been protective as a friend, and I also have been very comforting, I feel, at times like this. So I'll talk to you about a friend of mine who has been like my college buddy and my like Rakhi sister. So she has this issue where she has irregular periods, and we stay in Bombay. So from the time she's been in Bombay, she's moved to Bombay. I moved 2 years before her. She didn't have that support, right? She didn't have a family to take care of her. And I remember that we had to take her to hospitals. We had to take her to, healthcare centers, because we didn't know at that point why was the bleeding so irregular. Why was it happening? Was there some issue? We were all trying to figure out. I also got educated in a lot of ways because I have this habit of Googling anything that I get to know right now, which I don't know about. So I was Googling and I got to know, and I really feel that today I'm at a space, मेरे आजू बाजू में भी कोई बोलेगा ना कि यार मतलब and वो प्रॉब्लम है, it's not a problem. I keep telling people, पीरियड ना होना हमारी उम्र वाली लड़कियों को तो प्रॉब्लम है. लोगों को समझनी चाहिए वो बात कि पीरियड होना प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, पीरियड ना हो तो प्रॉब्लम है. And if this is the basic thought that we ingrain in ourselves, नजर और नजरिया बदलेगा ना तो दुनिया बदलेगी. And I'm sorry, but we need to start with men and also with women, because yes, you're right. Why do women have to be so stuck up about not sharing? Also because we don't give them that comfort. So we have to take the blame. It's adha on both of us. And of course, I blame the social conditioning for everything. Believe me, all the kind of prejudices that we have in the society towards men, women, kids, animals, it's all stemming from deep-rooted sense of entitlement and social conditioning. I have my sister whose birthday it was a few days ago, cousin sister. We thought of having a pool party because we were all stuck up in the house in the lockdown. So we got this really lovely pool, the plastic pools. So she bought it for her party. She wanted to do a pool party, and she was terrified that she's going through periods and she didn't want to join us. And we didn't care. We said, big deal, just come. Like, this is a conversation which I don't feel normal Indian households can have so freely. And there was a 10-year-old, my nephew was there, we were there, our bhabhi was there, our bhaiya was there, my masi was there. So it was across ages, and we didn't shy away from addressing a tampon as a tampon and a period as a period. What's the big deal? So I have been brought up in that environment, touchwood. I don't know what I would have been if I was not surrounded by these women and men around me, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you brought forward a lot of interesting points. But just to sum it up, I think one, familial support is very crucial. Like if people in your own family are not talking about it, then it becomes so much more difficult for you to discuss anything ranging from period problems to simply about the stigma in any setting. And second, the idea of communicating as much as possible. People without any logical basis, they end up shushing about it, as you say. And
See, it's very easy to say that because see, my grandmother must have taught my mom and my masi, right? But the problem is, that my masi has a daughter who's 16 years older to us. So we have always treated her as our elder sister, and we don't have a sister like of our own, but she's like our sister. So I have a brother who's 10 years older to me. So the point is that I have seen there have been instances in my house where my masi has come and my sister has come and my mother is there, and she must be going through a period at that point. And my masi said that please don't touch the achar ka dabba because it will get spoiled. But my mother was like, why? Matlab, ye sab mein kyun vishwas karna? So I have learned this from her, It's up to you what kind of conditioning you take. So abhi mere ko yaad aaya, so I just thought of sharing it with you because you will have different perspectives also. So yeah, that is absolutely how you should be, I feel.
Yeah, I think that's very true. So moving a little bit from stigmas to period poverty and the millions of people who are struggling. Ziyaan, this one's for you. Why is the work that civil society organizations such as For the Menstruator do important, and in what ways do these CSOs play a role in engaging communities at large and spreading awareness and resources?
I definitely think we have an extremely important role to play, if not the most important. I think a lot of the work that we do, Bindu does, a lot of organizations do, is just taking the strands that you mentioned again, right? Empower, enrich, educate. Um, Things like this, apart from provide, so for the menstruator, what we do is, apart from empowering menstruators by providing them with products, as we all know on this panel and people that are engaging in this discussion, period poverty is a very big issue around the world, right? Over 500 million menstruators don't have access to products, and what this means is, when they get their period every month, they use old rags, cloth, leaves, blankets. Some of the bleed free, lock themselves up in a room when they get their period. And this then further stops them from carrying out their daily activities, not going to school. In some areas around the world, menstruators have to treat sexual activity. There's a huge relation to teenage pregnancies, school dropouts, etc., and it's interrelated to a lot of issues. And in general, because of period poverty, then these menstruators are trapped in this vicious poverty cycle that's then passed on from generations to generations, and then inhibits them to sort of access opportunities and resources. And their period is then sort of a barrier for them to do what they do, and live a dignified life, if that makes sense. So a lot of the work that we do at For the Menstruator is, apart from providing reusable products that last for 3 years, we also empower menstruators with the skills and the education to not only have access, but to sort for 3 years, but also have lifelong access to products. And we do this by providing them with the skills and knowledge on how to make their own reusable products. So in the countries that we work in, we use locally available materials, and when we are providing these products, we have also seen that if there's a group of 1,000, if there's a whole community, and we go in there and, let's say, teach 10 of these menstruators in a community and empower them to a certain extent, then they then pass on this skill to 10 others, and those 10 pass it on to 10 others. So there's a whole exponential effect, and in reality, we're empowering a whole community. So the work that we do, as you can see, is so important in fighting period poverty and creating a world of menstrual equity where and menstrual freedom where periods don't hold any menstruator back, you know. And as the other panelists rightfully mentioned, this is something that's good that happens to your body, right? It's good. It's something that's completely normal, you know. So why is it that something like your periods have to hold you back from carrying out a normal life? Why does that have to be the barrier for you to access different opportunities? And that's why our work is so important in terms of providing products, empowering menstruators, educating people. In a lot of school systems, education is not something that in the education system, menstrual health and education is not something that's integrated. And when civil society organizations, grassroots organizations can go on ground, go to different rural regions and talk about this and empower menstruators, it really goes a long way. So I feel like for a lot of social justice issues, it's very easy for, let's say, throwing the blame on governments, which I feel like it's okay to do, but there's a huge responsibility on civil society organizations, and it's so important for people to support such organizations, be it by donating, be it by engaging on such panel discussions, be it by being part of such conversations, be sharing their Instagram posts, whatever it is. If there's ways to really work with civil society organizations that have access to going on ground and working directly with some of these menstruators, having some of these stories come out and really see the impact apart from just being numbers, but putting faces to some of these numbers, I think it's just so important. And we have such an important role to play and responsibility in sort of fighting this issue.
Yeah, I think Dr.
You know,
Yuvraj, you
I'll add something here. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what CSOs do is so important at multiple levels. I mean, the first thing is, you know, like for example, as doctors, we associate with a lot of CSOs for educational camps and programs and everything. You know, when there's something that is just an awareness program, the turnout, in my experience, is never that much as when you are giving free products. So what I'm trying to say here is that highlights where the poverty lies, you know. So if they're getting a product, that in turn, of course, always, most of the CSOs, I think 99% of the CSOs always, and that's why they don't just hand out goods, you know, they hand out materials, they do these street plays, they do educational stuff, they go to house and house to actually teach them how to use these products. Second, at the second level, as a gynac, you know, period poverty is not something that gets limited to your teenage years and to periods. It escalates till the end of your life. If you have these severe infections in your young age, tomorrow when you get married, you're going to suffer from infertility. Later on, you're going to suffer from these lot of other menstrual diseases, such as PIDs, such as adenomyosis or whatever, associated menstrual. I don't want to get into the science of it, but a lot of other diseases that's going to cause you a lifelong debility somewhere. You know, it's going to affect till your menopause, you know, and then the entire issue of getting an operation done, a hysterectomy done. You see so many of these young girls getting operated at 32, 35. A hysterectomy is probably, you know, for everyone, it's an operation where you remove the uterus. Now again, that's not it. When you remove the uterus, then you fall into a category of premature menopause. You know, so you see where these lies. It's not just a problem that concentrates on menstruators or per se that small section of group that requires period products. And also, you know, just a point to add that, and that's the same reason how men need to be encouraged, you know, because this is not something that limits to female health. This same female is tomorrow going to be your wife, is going to be your mother, or is going to be your grandmother, your aunt, right? And are you not going to take care of any of these relationships? So it affects everywhere. And you know, interestingly, it's not that people are not aware. You know, I have patients day in and day out. I mean, out of 10 females who come with their husbands, more than 50% of husbands actually know, you know, when the wife is having their periods. Is she regular or is she not regular? Because of course, one, they're concerned about fertility, they're concerned about children. So everyone is aware, but what we need to make them aware is how it's going to affect the economy, how it's going to affect their household status, in terms of money, in terms of health, and a lot of other things.
Yeah, I think a lot of very interesting ideas were brought up, and I believe that in the last few years, especially in particular, youth-led NGOs have really been changing the narrative surrounding menstruation. Of course, governments have responsibilities, corporates have responsibilities, but what NGOs are doing is not giving a person a fish, but teaching them to fish of sorts. You know, the entire idea of sustainable menstruation using locally produced materials is so important, because we can't be solving an issue while perpetuating another, which is environmental degradation. In addition to all the MHM workshops and education that that NGOs are doing, both through on-ground initiatives and through social media, it is genuinely applaudable. So we really applaud the work that you do, Ziyaan, and all the NGOs that have been working on this issue. Um, so moving a little from NGOs into corporates, Nayandeep, the entertainment industry, it reaches hundreds and millions of people across India. So according to you, what steps must the film industry in India take to destigmatize menstruation and improve the quality of life of menstruators who live here?
There was a point of time in our culture, in our industry, if you've seen, and actually it continues till today, we have really gone into tokenism or caricaturish presentation of every kind of thing that is called taboo. Taboo तो एक शब्द है जो मतलब अभी हर चीज, अभी तो सोशल ड्रामास चल रहे हैं, जो भी टैबू चीजें वही चलती है. That's a different story. Maybe you speak about erectile dysfunction, you speak about homosexuality, you speak about any kind of alternate choices that people make that usually is not considered normal by those stereotypical Indian, the Indian society at large. So now those things are getting presented in a better way is what I feel in the industry, because we are more educated. And I also feel that we have opened up to the idea of world cinema and world knowledge. And when we see that getting presented and represented so well in the outside world, thank God we are imitating the West, at least here, is what I feel. Thank God that Akshay Kumar did a film called Padman, and I was happy not because the film was being made. I was happy because a superstar like Akshay Kumar had the guts to do that. One scene, if you've seen the film, you will remember this scene where he is trying on the pad that he's putting on for the first time. And when he makes all the women try out, then they start bleeding, and that he realizes that his experiment has gone wrong. But when he tries it out, believe me, when I was watching it with the press, I get to watch the film with the press. Chalo, apne career ka ek iklauta advantage hai ki we get to see the film sometimes before it releases. Everybody in the press applauded that scene. See, we are ready for a change. But the problem is we have to be served with the change as well. When we speak about we being ready, I'm talking about the educated Indian. But I'm not saying the same for the average Indian, because after all, जब मैंने movie देखी थी and I thought that, oh, Akshay Kumar, I'm just bringing in a little bit of business here so that you understand the interrelation. Akshay Kumar doing any other film can get over 100 crore business easily. Akshay Kumar's Lakshmi also gets viewership more than millions, which is technically not a great film. But when Akshay Kumar does a film which is related to periods, the lifetime business of the film stops below 70 crores. Lifetime business of the film stopping at 70 crores, which means that a certain section of the audience went to watch the film and a certain section completely disregarded watching the film. Same happened with a film like Ek Ladki Ko Dekha, or maybe, different kinds of social films that deal or tackle social stigmas. So that needs to change. Once we, जैसे मैंने बोला कि हमारा नजरिया बदलेगा तो सब कुछ बदलेगा. So once the audience changes, then the industry also changes their representation. I feel there should be more. लोग सिगरेट फूकते हैं तो दिखा देते हैं नीचे कि smoking is injurious to health. Alcohol consumption is something we don't encourage. You don't have to show that for a period. It's normal. So why can't you show that in a film? Why can't it be normalized in a movie, in a web series? when you're normalizing abuses, when you're normalizing the use of a certain dialect, when you're normalizing the use of skin show, and I completely am okay if it's creatively a part of the script or requirement of the script, but when you're normalizing all of it and people are accepting it, at least make that effort. Maybe if there are 5 more Padmans now, then the 6th Padman that will come will get a better reach, and people will be more educated. People will be more open to the idea of watching another Padman, and that may be the first film to cross 150, 140 crore, double kar lega easily. And we don't have to have this conversation only where you have to think, why are we not educated enough? Why do we need these changes? We don't need social reforms if we are really there, because we are not there. We are having this conversation today because men are not comfortable talking about it. Men are not really educated about a period. That's why we are having a period talk with men. So it's sad. Like, let's just put it there that it's sad that we have to do this to educate a certain section of the audience. And films are the biggest reflection of the society and the art. And if there's a film like Padman, it means there's slight change in societal nazariya. So I hope there's more, because women anyway, like he said, that we have to be comforting. Women anyway, I have felt this and I've known, if you, from whatever women you know in life, you will know and you will feel that I'm telling you the correct thing. Women always veer towards sensitivity and kindness. उनको ना आप kind warmth दे दो, उनको और कुछ नहीं चाहिए होता है, ये maximum है. And warmth and love is all that they require when they're battling the pain that comes with periods, not the taboo or the stigma. That's a different conversation altogether.
I just wanted to add on. First of all, thank you, Nandi, for sharing that. I loved hearing those words. But I think when we're talking also about how periods are represented on screens, if you just see like period advertisements and period product advertisements and even how it's represented in movies or films or shows, made in India and other parts of the world, a lot of the times periods are represented not even with the right colors, sometimes you'll see like period blood being like a whole different color, or blood is not even shown, it's shown as like this blue liquid, which is so weird, and it's ironic because I know there was a time where especially in the space, a lot of people are having this conversation on how period blood is the one blood that's not associated with killing or murder, and they are able to show blood that's associated with murder or so many wrongdoings on screen so normally, but they can't show period blood, which is associated to life, and that's so crazy and ironic that how blood that's associated with life is not shown on screen, but blood that's associated with killing and murder and has a negative sort of element to it is so normal, so it's just really ironic to see that, and how I can't, like, it's crazy to think about that in this age and time that's something that's like so looked away upon, I think.
Can I add something? So we have this we joke around, as there is CSO and corporate social responsibility, there has to be something known as celebrity social responsibility. And I think not to blame anyone, but I so agree with what Nayandeep said in terms of that those are the two things that we exactly talk about. That is, one is, we have so easily normalized swearing, a lot of other things, like I'm not sure whether I'm allowed to use this word, but we have female friends today who say bad words with us, who smoke with us. That's become normalized, but still talking about menstruation still somewhere is not normalized. And also, what happens, and I come from this place where I'm closest to what people think in terms of menstruation as what maybe a stigma, as health issues, what. The problem that I have in terms of how celebrities approaches, when Padman comes, everyone starts talking about it, but what then? And then it's really, I mean, people understand what's happening, right? I'm sure that the heart was at the right place, and it's applaudable that something like that happened. But suddenly today, you see Akshay Kumar and Twinkle Khanna talking about periods, and then it's just come out of a thin air. I mean, he has never spoken about periods till today, and then suddenly he starts talking about periods. So it's not relatable, girls are not, or anyone is not going to relate, because then everyone feels it's a gimmick. And and then what Nayandeep said, exactly what Nayandeep said. He's one person. tell me another star who might have taken these steps before, like a huge star. We see maybe smaller stars and what we used to call when I was small parallel cinema talking about all these things, but talk about another popular star who was talking about it. And I'm sorry, I love Akshay Kumar, but I've never heard him talk about periods there. So that's where I always feel that whenever, when Kareena Kapoor starts talking about infertility, we appreciate it, but then when you talk about infertility, it should not be when you're doing something like, I don't know the name of that film, but I forgot wo jo hui thi, regarding that, she took an IVF that was also
Good
Akshay
news.
Kumar. Yeah, good news, right? Thank you. So I feel that, and what happens is at that time they forget to associate themselves with people who are actually working, maybe a doctor, maybe someone like Ziyaan who's actually there in the fields. So probably I understand they cannot do that thing their whole life, but that film or that topic when they've taken should empower 10 NGOs or 10 doctors or 10 social workers to carry that work forward. That onus to carry is not theirs, but that at that point of time maybe they could have reflected probably Ziaan's CSO, and that would have brought that name everyone, and they could have carried forward a work.
Just adding on to what Dr. Yuvraj just said, a very good example of someone that has sort of done something like that in the film industry is, I don't know if you guys have had the opportunity to watch the Oscar-winning documentary Period End of Sentence. What they did was, it was a 20 to 30-minute documentary filmed in India, and it showed some of these on-ground issues. The person that Padman was made upon, the actual Padman, also had he himself also was part of the whole like production, and he was part of,
Yeah.
his story was highlighted, right? And after that, the producers of the film launched an organization called the Pad Project, and now they're working in so many different areas around the world, and actually are on ground and are working with local stakeholders and other organizations, and they're using the sort of the credibility of the film and how much attention it got, and sort of use all of that awareness and all that they've done to now work on ground and empower different menstruators around the world. And I think that's such a good example of how they can sort of carry that out. And I'm sure probably Padman, the film, would have done maybe even better, or maybe even have got more international recognition if they did something like that. Because if a low budget film documentary that were made by a group of people could win an Oscar-winning documentary, I'm sure Bollywood has that sort of capacity. If they have someone like Akshay Kumar acting something big like this, they could have done something to that extent. And I feel like maybe then it would have done even better in terms of the business aspect of it.
Yeah, I think something very important that was brought forward was just how obsessed people are with commercial films, with all these capitalistic, commercialistic films, and at the same time, the entire idea that you don't necessarily have to portray periods as a social issue in films. It can, just like the many issues that we discussed now, we've normalized swear words, we've normalized killing. So why not normalize showing a menstruator on their period in a film, not as a social issue, but simply as something that's part of life? So this entire idea of normalization, and secondly also what impact these films make. They shouldn't just be transient money making efforts, but also something that's impacting NGOs, impacting individuals, and impacting the most vulnerable menstruators of our society. So thank you for such an engaging discussion. um, Moving on to our next topic, which is for Dr. Yuvraj. So when menstruating, we know that of course physical health is very important. Using menstrual products, having the right diet, choosing between the right medicines, all of that is important. But research shows us that mental health is also very important when it comes to periods. So, what are some ways in which men, particularly, can help foster better mental health for menstruators?
I think in some way we've answered that question when when Nayandeep said, just be sensitive. That's the first thing, and that goes for anything. Second, also the same point he made is just Google it. If you can Google about different sexual positions, and you can Google about masturbation, and you can Google about a lot of other things, you can sure sit and Google about what's happening in your house with your loved and near dear ones. Third, of course, the whole mental trauma or kind of the responsibility and the effect comes because, again, we don't speak about it, and it's considered normal. Periods somewhere is associated with pain, but what are we asking females? What is the level of pain? Are you really talking about a pain that she can tolerate, or are we talking about a pain that she's just suffering from? Because it's just not about menstrual pain. Menstrual pain is associated with a lot of diseases in terms of which would require some form of intervention and treatment. And a huge mental talk here is, again, so somewhere when we are talking about periods, again, the whole onus of menstruation is associated with womanhood. So I mean, there's no relation between you being a female, a woman, or at the prime of your womanhood and your menstruation. People in our society, it's really associated. Like there's deep ethos that says men should produce children, at the same time women should produce children and menstruate. So it needs people needs to be more sensitive about all those issues. Also, if you're menstruating, all right. If you're not menstruating, also all right. They're like a million women born without uteruses in this world, and they do absolutely fine in their life. So probably they're just carrying the uteruses and the onus of menstruation because we want children, probably. So yeah. So I think I think we all know what to do, right? I mean, be it mental health or physical health, just be sensitive enough, talk about it, educate yourself, and that's it. It's not very difficult, I feel.
Yeah, I think you put that very aptly. Nayandeep, I know you want to leave. Will you be able to take one last question?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I actually have
All right.
that interview. I'm so sorry. Otherwise, I would have but I can come back at
No,
7.
no worries, no
Yeah,
worries.
please tell
So
me.
anyways, just one last question. Um, so I know you've been a journalist for many years and you've been working in the journalism industry. So when media houses cover an event or a topic, the words they choose are very important. They matter a lot. So according to you, what steps can such companies take to practice responsible journalism, A, and B, ensure that they're not further perpetuating any stigmas against women or menstruators or menstruation itself?
I might get pulled up for this but I will say this today. I have been in an organization where my fellow colleague has been questioned for taking 2 days leave also. And sometimes what happens is that I do understand that sometimes, I'm not saying that all women do it or nobody does it, but I do understand that sometimes people do use that as an option to take leaves. But when that person is coming out and really talking about their issues, and this is a person I'm talking about who doesn't like talking about things about period issues in public. She can speak to her close friends, but she will not speak about it in public. Putting her in a spot where she has to come out and literally burst out and speak about it is shameful. So I feel that in a month, it should be a norm for all big corporates. And if they can lead by example, they should give we give maternity breaks, right, to women. If that is normal, they should be giving 2 days off to people every month, depending on their days. That's it. And if we can start that, like my team is very, very comfortable with me. Today, I'm in a position where people have to take permission from me and at least inform me that mujhe chutti chahiye. And I never stop them because till the time you believe them, they'll never lie to you. that is what my mother has taught me, that जितना आप भरोसा करोगे वो भरोसा तोड़ेंगे नहीं, सच बता देंगे कि मुझे आज ऐसी छुट्टी चाहिए, मेरी तबीयत ठीक नहीं लगी, मुझे काम करने का मन नहीं है, बोल देंगे. If you are cool enough, they will tell you कि yeah, I don't feel like doing it, let me take a half day, I'll work on another day. And that also works. But what I'm trying to say is, if big corporates, like you said, journalism companies are also part of that conglomerate, right? So if they can take that step, first of all, it will be a very big step. I think everybody present here will also, who are all are working professionals, and they'll really stand by this, that they need those 2 days, because sometimes they are in immense pain. They can't move. I have seen my friends, my sister, suddenly being in immense pain, and they can't move. And of course, they're irritable because of the pain. And you have to give it to them. Yeah? You can't shame them. You can't mock them. You can't be saying, "Ki tumhare period chal rahe kya?" randomly. Like he said that, we use such words randomly. This happens with men also. आजकल तो लोगों को भी, लड़कों को भी बोलते हैं ना कि तू पीरियड, तेरा पीरियड चल रहा है क्या? That's the worst thing you can do to a man, a woman, or anybody, because it's not a problem. You are sick. This is हम लोग बिना सोचे, unintentionally we are stigmatizing it further, and we don't realize it. As for journalists, I feel that if we can take that opportunity to once in a while at least take our position or use our privilege and the power that we have, which is the power of the pen, power of the gab, to speak about it, like without having any other ulterior motives or intention, just speak about it. Like Yuvraj said that there was a chatter when Padman released and there was no chatter after that. I absolutely stand that. There should be continuous chatter. There should be regular chatter. Periodically sahi, but regular hona chahiye. If you are standing for it, like आज मैं कर दूं period talk for men, and कल को मेरे साथ कोई बात करने आया तो मैं बोलूंगा नहीं मेरे पास टाइम नहीं है, मैं नहीं बात करने वाला. So it doesn't make me a good person. It makes me a fake person, is what I'm trying to say. It makes me somebody who has an agenda कि अच्छा मुझे अभी ये करना है, मुझे ये promote करना है, मुझे वो करना है, तो मैंने अपने हिसाब से कर लिया, अब मुझे नहीं चाहिए, because people have already liked me in that, why should I do it? That's the most wrong attitude, even for journalists. I know journalists covered period and period issues and the social stigmatization so much when Padman was releasing, but how many of us actually do that? Like, this is not to like take focus away, but my colleague is there, Bhavna. We do a segment in one of our chat shows. I've always done this. If you go back and see in Pink Villa and in Bollywood Bubble, so we have this segment called Guess the Price. I perpetually put a sanitary napkin ka pack for them to realize that it's so costly, and you should see their reaction, because sometimes they don't know that it's so costly, and they're like, this can't be so costly. Some people have said 6 ka pack is 12 rupees when it's 78 rupees. So these kind of conversations, whether you do it in jest, which educates, like you said, which actually enriches your information and makes you a better, more knowledgeable person, I will always be there and standing up for all this. And yeah, I feel that everybody else also should. Journalists or not, everybody should.
I want to say something before Nayandeep goes.
Sure.
I mean, what he said, there's nothing to add. It was perfect. But I'm going to give you an example. So when COVID was at its peak, so a lot of us were doing a lot of work in terms of social media, in terms of awareness, free helplines, XYZ. And I'm giving this example because I relate to it in very recent times. And so I used to have this flurry of influencers who wanted to do a live with me, who wanted to collaborate with me, wanted to do a Q&A with me or something like that. So somewhere I was very happy. I'm so happy that, people are taking this responsibility and all. Now, cut 2 months, people are saturated with COVID, but COVID is still there. I think people are just saturated with the information.
And,
yeah. And now no one wants to do it. Second, so I'm taking it a little forward. It's Pride Month, So it's again, this thing doesn't end with COVID, or it doesn't end with menstruation. I think this conversation is larger. It's about everything that affects us, and only inclusively the society is going to become healthier. So if menstrual problems ko solve kar diya, the society is not going to become what we are expecting it to be, right?
Absolutely.
So now this same huge media channels who were after me, we did Q&As and this and that on COVID. I said, okay, it's Pride Month. Let's talk about sexual health in LGBTQA, and I went to the extent of messaging. Now no one is interested. So I mean, I understand that it was maybe whatever, it was the demand of the situation. But what Andy said,
that's
you
the
need
problem, because it's all on viewership and acceptance. If a film like Padman, I'm being honest, the reason I'm bringing the numbers is, if a film like Jab Ek Ladki Ko Dekha, which was a social film, but it was a good film. I really liked it. I liked the way they presented it subtly and so nicely, beautifully. They didn't go overboard, they didn't underplay it.
Yeah.
My point is, a film like that didn't even do 20 crores. Why will another producer, looking at this film's fate, make another film on this? They would rather make a Dostana where they'll make it more fun, more frothy, which will work. And then similarly, then there'll be a question that you're making it caricaturish. But what to do? Because if the audience and if the people change, हमारा नजरिया बदलेगा ना, वो हमारे choices में दिखता है. When we change our viewpoint towards things, it obviously reflects in the choices we make. And if our viewpoint changes after this conversation, I don't know how much, but if it changes, then believe me or not, you will not have 3, but you will have 30 men willing to join this conversation on their own. When you get that, you feel that, okay, chalo, this is what we have gained from this conversation. That is what I'm going to say.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nayandeep. Those were some
Thank
very
you so much for
words.
having me. It was lovely
And,
to talk to you guys, especially Yuvraj. You're doing a fantastic job. Thank you for saving all our lives. Big thank you to the entire community for standing there and selflessly being there for people and helping people out. Ziyaan, thank you, because it was lovely talking to you, and Iliyan, because you conducted it so well, and everybody here, all the men, women, whoever watched it, thank you. And I hope that सच में हमारा थोड़ा सा अगर सोशल, हम लोग अगर अच्छे पेरेंट्स बन जाए ना, तो शायद 15 साल बाद ये कॉन्वर्सेशन करने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. I have a niece who's 9 years old. Believe me, I am like a parent to her. I always call her my first child. I will never let her grow up in an environment which is so stigmatized. At least not the periphery. The peripheral environment has to be very, very progressive. If we all come to the conclusion and do this for our kids or our next generation of nephews, nieces, whatever, believe me, we'll make a kinder world when we leave.
Great,
thank you so much.
Connecting with you, Nayandeep here. Pleasure seeing you here.
Pleasure seeing you as well.
Thank you so much. We hope to keep in touch with you. And you've been a great part of this one. Thank you so much, Nandi.
Thank you.
All right. So we just have a few more questions before we wrap up today's panel. So I think you, Dr. Yuvraj, you just spoke about LGBTQ communities, and since it's Pride Month, I wanted to bring this up now. So we're in a time where our society has already perpetuated countless myths and unending stigma surrounding menstruation, and like menstruators to an extent are who are women are already oppressed in many ways. They don't have a sense of freedom in many ways, and in between all of this we have those menstruators who are not women, and we have those women who don't menstruate, and these small groups of individuals can be very easily left out from the conversation. So according to you, how can we help these people feel more included in the conversation?
That's all. It's so, honestly, if we are still not able to be satisfied with the work we've been doing with the conventional menstruators point of view, it just, I don't know when will we be able to accept menstruators in general, in terms of transgender men, non-binary people. The problem here is people don't know. I mean, conduct a survey and ask them a full form of LGBTQIA. People might know L and B, and then they are going to struggle. And believe me, it's not just about the entire section or people. I'm not talking about everyone, even educated people, doctors. I have had gynacs and my friends. In fact, I just had a call a few days back where a very, very famous gynac wanted to do like a live on LGBTQA health, because she's just like, I don't know about all these things. One, of course, because it's not taught. But then again, you can't blame everything on the education and schooling system. Now is you have all the means to make an effort to understand, right? So I think one is that you need to educate. Second, I think there is a lot of response. Now I take a responsibility in terms of people like me, and of course people like Ziyaan who are already doing so much. I think we just need to keep on pushing, we keep on fighting. I was not active on social media a year back. I came to social media with, or whatever, there were a lot of reasons, and then I realized the power of it. And that's where when I said celebrity social responsibility, because I know the power that they have. When I talk, maybe 10,000 people listen. When they talk, a million people listen, and people follow. I wish I had that power. So I think the only way we can move forward, apart from what we've all discussed in terms of education and talking and all, is also collaborations. I wish Nayandeep was here. We need these people who have this capacity to get, like, when I do a live session, I get, 100, 200, which is great. And when I do a live session with someone like a Nakul Mehta, there are like 1,000 people, you know. So the job becomes easier there in and there out. I don't need to work there. So I think we need better collaborations. And that is how we'll be able to educate. And this is about media. When it comes to groundworks, ground level pe to we don't have an option. We need social workers and propagators and people like Ziyaan and a lot of other NGOs and you guys who are doing the ground level of work. The problem here is, interestingly, and I would love to know Ziyaan's opinion here, is that in fact menstruators, the work on menstruation, there is a huge level of work that goes on. It's not small. Even in country like India, there are amazing organizations doing some amazing work, but then it doesn't escalate to the society where the conversations are happening. You give it and that's it. So the problem is how to connect the bridge between where we stay and those villages where the work is also going on. And that is something that collaborations can bring. And where LGBTQ and non-binary people, they have to be included. Again, that brings to your second question of mental health. If you're not going to include them, anyways, they feel they are not being recognized, they are depressed, there are 1,000 mental problems with that. And this is just an additional problem. And talking about non-people menstruators being terms where women also don't menstruate a lot of times, even that is so important. ये बहुत पुराना concept है, because it is related to fertility, and because I'm a fertility expert, I know the history where it comes from. Because women, if they don't menstruate, they were not considered to be women and XYZ. So it needs to, people need to understand, for you to be women, you don't need to menstruate. It's all right if you don't menstruate. I am a doctor and I'm telling you, nothing is going to happen. कितने लोग अपनी surgery करा लेते हैं. People are born without uteruses. People just get rid of uteruses in their early ages. They don't stop becoming women. They are women, and some of the most beautiful women in this world have got their uteruses removed.
I'll just sorry. I'll just add on to that. I think Yuvraj probably summed up everything that I was thinking. But again, I think it's even when we're talking about inclusivity, it's so important to also think about the terminology that we use. Things like using the term menstruators when referring to people that menstruate, or people who menstruate, rather than only talking about women and girls all the time. And it's hard. Like, I catch myself, even since I've worked in this space for like 4 years now, but I still find myself using terminology like women and girls, because it's so easy to do that. So I feel like terminology has such a big thing. And then apart from that, I think Dr. Yuvraj brought up a very important point on collaborations. um Working in this space, especially the last 2 years or so, I've taken a lot of time in fostering these collaborations between organizations in this space. A lot of the times, unfortunately, in the nonprofit world, the people are prioritizing competition over collaboration. Who can have the highest numbers? Who can have the most impact? Who gets the most recognition? Who was most recently featured on this newspaper? Who was, I don't know, called to speak at this place. It's sad. It's so sad to see. Unfortunately, when an organization receives funding, they're gonna hoard all of it. They won't share those resources with smaller organizations. So a lot of the work that I've done in the last 2 years or so is I mean, we recently last year launched International Period Month to celebrate the whole month of May in line with Menstrual Hygiene Day. And a lot that we did was, how do we sort of work with organizations and have a unified message and bring this front together and make a larger impact in terms of awareness and capacity building. How do Right now we've been working behind the scenes. We haven't really announced this to anyone yet, but we've been working on something called the International Period Congress, where we're sort of trying to sort of bridge collaboration between international organizations, grassroots organizations, people from all these different sectors, in terms of coming up with some sort of UN type of body for organizations in this space and get our priorities together. So we have a lot like of work planned in terms of that, and we are sort of getting some of the bigger and smaller organizations on board. But again, collaboration is so important in the social impact space. Collaboration between organizations and also with other stakeholders, such as, let's say, healthcare workers, or people in the corporate space, or people in the media. And I feel like it's so important when you are in a position of privilege, where you do have power, where you do have people, let's say, looking at you. How do you then use that to empower, let's say, those that don't? um let's say our organization's priorities is not thinking about how many followers we have on Instagram, right? Or how much reach we have. Our organization's priorities is the number of people that we're able to help on ground. So we might not necessarily have expertise on media or like social media, but if you do have that and you don't have expertise on going on ground, then how do we sort of bridge that gap and add value to each other's work? And I think it's so important. Unfortunately, as Dr. Yuvraj said, that a lot of people in the media space, a lot of people that are in positions of power will only want to work with you when it's in line with their interests at that point in time. So let's say in COVID, when it was at its peak, they wanted to collaborate with you, but now you see they don't want to, And it's the same for us. Every year we see this thing where just during Menstrual Hygiene Day, 28th May, you'll see all these influencers. Yo, I want to come on live with you. I want to do this with you. But then in December, when we have like a lot of need and we want to fundraise through crowdfunding, and we reach out to them, you won't even get a response. And it's so normal to see that. And unfortunately, it's sad, but there's a lot of work to be done. I'm personally optimistic. It's nice to see young organizations, people having these conversations, and we have made progress for sure. And I think it's important that we continue to build off of that. And every time we get into positions of privilege, let's not forget to do that as well. I feel like so easy to say that when you don't have that power, you don't are not in that position. But when you do get there, when you do get those resources or that funding or that power or that recognition, make sure to always share that with others, and always be reflective of that and self-aware. I think so very much.
Yeah, I think that was a very important couple of points that were brought forward, especially the entire idea of whether it is about the LGBTQ community, or menstruators in general. It is very important for the people who are in power, people who have a good reach, to use that reach in an effective manner. And for people who don't have enough voice, they should try their best to amplify that as much as possible, so that they can increase and amplify the number of people that they serve. And Ziyaan, you spoke about privilege and how what kind of a role privileged individuals play. So, can you please elaborate a little bit about how we, as people who have a roof over our head, who have food to eat, who have menstrual products at our availability, how can we help those who are underprivileged, those who don't even live in our own cities, those who are far off in rural areas, in tribes, in the most socially and geographically isolated areas. How can we as fortunate people help these people when it comes to fighting period poverty and other stigmas?
I think there's I think infinite number of ways that we can help and contribute towards the solution. But starting off, I think before even thinking about as just normal individuals going thinking about villages and rural regions, just think about your own community, you know, think about your household. A lot of you probably have, let's say, people that come clean your houses, you know, you have like servants or maids or people that come clean your houses. Have you ever had a conversation with them about if they have access to products? Have you ever had a conversation with them about their backgrounds or where they come from or where they live? um a lot of the times even I personally don't have that conversation, you know, with them, and they might be facing this issue on themselves. Have you ever asked them how, if when they're on their period, how are they able to afford getting access to products even though they have such, let's say, low wages, you know? So think about like people in your community, think about your security guard and his family. When I went home last when I was at home, the security guard of my building, I had a conversation because he kept seeing me going for meetings and doing stuff. And he keeps asking me where I'm going and what I'm doing. And I had a whole 30-minute conversation with him about the work that I'm doing. And then he asked me, he's like, you know what? Like, actually, my wife and my daughter also can't afford products. Is there any way that you can help me? And I was able to provide him with the products that we distributed in a village that was kilometers away from me, but I didn't even realize that in my own community, someone that's literally takes care of me isn't can't afford products, you know, or his family can't afford products. So it's simple things like that that I feel like go such a long way. And it's important that we just look around us and see what are the issues around us and how on a smaller scale. You don't have to start up a whole organization, you don't have to donate hundreds and thousands of dollars. It's as simple as buying, I think someone mentioned pads. A pack of pads is what, 76 rupees, right? And that's not a lot of money. I feel like that's something that we can afford. So just something as simple as that can go such a long way, and you won't even realize the impact that we have. The fact that we're in positions of privilege, that we can even have these conversations, is such a big deal. So how do we now use that, use our platforms, use what we have to then support others? I think it's honestly so important. But on a larger scale, on ways to help, you can always donate to existing organizations. There are thousands and thousands of organizations in your community, in your country, in your city, right? There's ways you can, things like even sharing a social media post by an organization goes such a far way. If you can't donate, spread the word, you know. And then I think the most important is we continue having these conversations. We don't stop after this event or after today, or we might have all this energy after listening to this panel, like, you know, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then tomorrow morning you wake up and it's all gone. So important to continue these conversations, continue engaging, keep the conversation going. And I think slowly but surely we will get there, and I'm optimistic. And hopefully our kids and the generations to come will live in a world where this is a conversation we don't even have to have, you know. Yeah.
That was definitely very inspiring. I particularly relate to what you said about the very people around us. Um, like before you go out into villages and into very remote areas, why not start home? There are maids who come to your house every day. There are people who pick up the trash. There are people like security guards, so many workers around you. And Bindu itself, a few months ago we had launched a project named Project Greh means home, where anyone can fill a form and we send them sustainable kits for free, and they can share those resources with their own housemates or the people around them who need it. So I think this is a very important point about first looking after the people who surround you, not only your family but also those uh, who work for you on a daily basis. So yes, thank you, Ziyaan, for that. Yes, I think we're running out of time. So let's see, do we have any questions from the audience? I think we've already discussed so much that the audience feels very inspired as of now. So yes, before we conclude, I would just like to remind everyone about the giveaway. If you've attended 2 or more panels, you will be automatically entered to win um, a modern art by Abhi. And if you've attended 3 or more panels, you'll be entered to win goodies and vouchers by Living the Lux. We'll be announcing these winners soon, hopefully by the end of tomorrow. And before we wrap up, we would just wanted to have some last words from our panelists, and whatever you would like to say, and how men can be true allies of those who menstruate. Yes.
I think Ziyaan has wrapped up pretty pretty well. Like we could probably, yeah. But I think we've said everything. If I want to wrap it up in like a sentence, I think we all of us just need to be more involved and more inclusive. That's it.
Ziyaan.
Yeah, I think honestly this conversation was so inspiring. I learned a lot and took a lot away. What I would say is, again, let's just keep the conversations going. Remember that periods are not something that's dirty or shameful or has a negative association. If you think about it, none of us would even be alive, no matter what age, race, gender, or background we come from, if it wasn't for periods and the menstrual and reproductive cycle. So let's continue this conversations. Let's try and involve organizations. Let's share that post, come to such events, keep the conversations going, and look around you and see how in the smallest of ways you can make an impact. It really go a long way. And be it if you're menstruating or not, this is a conversation that and a topic or a thing that affects us all. And not because, let's say, our mother or sister or someone in our family has periods, but just because it's a human issue, and over, I guess, 50% of the world's population goes through periods, and it's something that we just need to continue talking about and continue. So thank you all for coming. Thank you so much for Bindu for organizing this event, and all of the other panels. It's really nice to see how much you all are doing, and all of your work is so important. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ziyaan. I think it was especially interesting how we had such inspiring people from 3 very different walks of life. One is a youth activist, the other is a doctor and expert, and another is a film journalist. These are 3 very different professions or areas of work. But I think what really made this panel special is that we all are working towards the same goal. At the end, we're all walking each other home. So thank you once again to all our panelists, Ziyaan, Dr. Yuvraj, and Nayandeep. Thank you to all our attendees, especially those who attended all our 4 panels. Thank you so much. This has been an amazing ride. All 4 panels have been so enriching, and I just loved it today. I got to learn so much personally, and I'm sure the audience members resonate with me. Thank you once again, our panelists, the volunteers from Bindu who worked so hard to reach out to such amazing panelists and bring together this entire community. And stay safe and take care. Thank you so much.
Please get vaccinated.
Yes, please get vaccinated as early as possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Ziyaan, it was a pleasure connecting with you.
Yeah, I asked you to unmute.
Oh yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll definitely keep connected. Thank you all. See you guys.
Bye. Bye.
Have a great day. Good night. And thank you so much.